This is TJR's Classic Rock Corner podcast, with your host, the Classic Rock Brainiac, yours truly, Terrence Reardon. Sit back and listen to me gush over albums that I love that either had an impact on my life or rock and roll in general, and be rest assured that there's no country or rap nonsense to be found here. So welcome to another exciting episode of TJR's Classic Rock Corner. Welcome back, my friends, to the podcast that never ends. It's the Classic Rock Brainiac Terrence Reardon, or Terrence Joseph Reardon, aka TJR, here on TJR's Classic Rock Corner podcast. A show which is gaining a lot of goodwill, a lot of good reputation, and a lot of more new viewers and subscribers on YouTube, and also asking for, if you can do it, donations on PayPal and Patreon. Reason being is because I want to expand the show to get more and more fans and become arguably one of the go-to sites for classic rock history, and to preserve the history of these great bands. And the reason I'm doing albums is because all I talk about is albums that either I love or had an impact on classic rock. And also, anything after 1978 from Ted Nugent will not be covered. And I'm on the fence for Bad to Hell. I should cover it for historical purposes, although it's a little too over the top for me, but I actually do prefer Free For All, but that's neither here nor there. But the bottom line is, I talk about things that I love. I don't talk about things that I don't like, because I sound like I'm complaining, but that's just me. But today on the show, I'm going to be talking about an album which had an impact on rock and roll. And in fact, it was this British band's most successful album here in the good old United States of America. Not just sales-wise, but also charting-wise. And it's a band I covered a year plus ago with a From the Vault episode. But this time I figured I would cover the album and the events of 1980 and 81 for this band. And you look at the title, it's Queen. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about Queen Year in Review 1980-81. Reason being is because they put out two albums in 1980, and then another album in 1980, and then a live recording was done in 1981 that was released many years later. So I'll be covering everything to do with this. Kind of borrowing from my buddy JCM of Led Zeppelin Stories. So I'm going to, as main focus, talk about the 1980 album by the Royalty of Rock. That was their biggest selling album here in this good old home of the Stars and Stripes in the 50 states, as in the United States of America. The album called The Game. Yeah, I'll be talking about the Game, and I'll also be talking a little bit about the Flash Gordon soundtrack, and also talk about Queen Rock Montreal, which was a live document recorded during this time but was not officially released as a live album until 2007. Although a VHS was released in the 80s, but with chipmunk speed release. And or if you, depending where you lived, it was cut up or whatever. But I'll be talking about that and the 2007 re-release of said that live document, originally called We Will Rock You, now called Queen Rock Montreal, 1981. So let's begin proceedings with The Game. This was the band's 8th studio album in as many years, released in June of 1980. And by this stage, Queen were on a roll. Lead singer Freddie Mercury, guitarist Brian May, drummer Roger Taylor, and bass player John Deacon. And by this point in time, the band had released 5 studio albums that all went top 15. Many of them went into the top 5 and or top 10. The 4 previous studio albums. A Night at the Opera, which I already discussed, go back to episode 12. That went to number 4. A Day at the Races, which I have in the vault, which I'll re-air at some point, rather than re-record. That went all the way to number 5. It was the second top 5 album for Queen here in the States. And the News of the World, which I have to redo at some stage, That went all the way to number 3 on the Billboard album chart, which until the game was their highest position of any Queen studio album. And then Jazz, which was a victim of bad timing, stalled at number 7 or number 6, one of the two. And I have an episode on that I have to re-edit, and if it sounds like I'm recording from I think I'm in a vacuum cleaner, that was because it was originally recorded on the computer of mine that I once had. And then 1979 saw Queen finishing up their tour in support of Jazz, which the band toured, the United States in 78 for the Jazz album, late in the year, and then they toured Europe in the beginning of 79. And then Jazz went, the band finished Jazz, and then after the European tour, the band went right to Mountain Studios, the studio that they had bought in Montreal, Switzerland, to mix and release their first live album, 1979's Live Killers. And while many rock fans love Live Killers, many people do, I think there's better live documents out there, like Queen Rock Montreal, which I'll bring up. It was pretty much almost the same set list as Live Killers, but with some game material added, and it's also just 2 shows, not a copy mismatch of many shows to create suitable live versions. Because Brian May and Roger Taylor look back at that said live album with Redbeard on In the Studio for the making of the game, said, we were laboring for hours and weeks and months over that live album, and in retrospect we could have just said to somebody, mix us a live album, because it was not that great, and we were not too happy with the results in the end. And there was a lot of overdubs on that live album. On Queen Rock Montreal there are a few, but not too many, and thank goodness it was mostly from 2 nights, so there you have it. It's actually more live than Live Killers, that's for sure. And with a little assist from Greg Synth Bootlegs, my old buddy. I know he doesn't like me much anymore, but Greg Synth Bootlegs, I gotta give him credit. He was the one that exposed me to many live recordings from this period, and listen to them all. Some sound better than others. And, Queen were doing very well. Live Killers peaked at number 16 on Billboard. I'll talk more about that in the updated Jazz episode. But yeah, Live Killers went top 20, eventually went platinum here in the States. So the band was releasing albums that either went gold or platinum or better here in the States by then. So as soon as Live Killers was released, Queen were already back in the studio, this time at Musicland Studios in the basement of the Arabella Hotel, the same place where acts like Rainbow, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, all Deep Purple had recorded albums along the way. And Arabella's new Musicland Studios' new mastermind was Reinhold Mack, who was a recording engineer who had worked with the likes of the Rolling Stones on It's Only Rock and Roll as an assistant engineer, Black and Blue as an assistant engineer, although he didn't take any credit. Presence by Led Zeppelin, which I already discussed a few episodes ago. Check that out. And then he was the main engineer for ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, on their albums Face the Music, A New World Record, Out of the Blue, and Discovery. So Reinhold Mack was gaining his reputation as a recording engineer, and with this album here, The Game, he would earn his first real big production credit on a major release. And John Deacon, the bass player of Queen, found the studio while Queen were touring, doing the latter part of the Crazy Tour, not the Crazy Tour, but the 1978-79 Jazz Tour. John was in Munich, and he found Musicland Studios and befriended Mack and said, this is a nice studio, and Mack was like, in that German come Birmingham accent of his, because he worked with Jeff Lynne for years, he's like, well, if you guys ever want to record here, come here. And John's like, hey, sure, great idea, tell me bandmates about this place. So then John told Roger, Brian, and Freddie about Musicland. They're like, let's give it a whirl. Let's record outside of England once again. Which they did. This was the second Queen studio album in a row where Queen recorded outside their native England for tax reasons. And the band wound up putting 4 songs to tape in 1979, including the song that would be the first single from the album here around the world, and then another song that would be the second single in most territories except the United States. So the 4 songs that they would record during this time frame were Crazy Little Thing Called Love, Save Me, Coming Soon, and Sail Away, Sweet Sister. All recorded in the summer of 1979. And then, after a break and doing more tours, including the Crazy Tour of 79, which was a small British tour where they played smaller British venues. The biggest they probably played, I think, was the Birmingham NEC and Hammersmith Odeon, but the rest of the places were like all vaudeville theaters. Queen went back to Munich, Germany in February 1980 to continue work on the new album, with the 4 members of the band producing once again and Mac engineering the album. And while they were working in Munich, they caught wind that they had their first American #1 single with a song which I'll reveal when I get to it. And then when this album was released, they would wind up duplicating that feat with another track in the album. And of course, the album would also follow suit. And the album was mixed at Musicland, mastered at Alan Zentz, mastering by Alan Zentz. If you have the original US vinyl, it'll say around the in-out, run-out groove of the record. So Queen were on a roll. And when this album was released in a unique cover, which depicted a band from the Crazy Little Thing video shoot on the front, like a gray or a shiny silver cover, you're like, well, this band knows how to package and release records. And then, of course, the inner sleeve had the band look a little more updated, because the front cover photo was taken in 1979. The inner sleeves were taken at Musicland, or at the Arabella Hotel where the band was staying, with each of the 4 band members getting separate portrait photos. And of course, Deaky and May and Taylor really had no appearance changes, but Freddie Mercury went through the biggest appearance change of the 4. Through the 70s, he was clean-shaven and longish hair, and on top of that, he was a non-smoker through 1979. In 1980, he started the smoking habit, and then he grew the Village People mustache and cut his hair short, which eventually would upset quite a few American Queen fans, but that's neither here nor there. That wouldn't really happen for a few more years. But in 1980, people saw it, well, it's the beginning of a new decade, so what the hell. And on top of that, Queen tried a few more new styles of music. Hard rock, a funk track, rockabilly, 3 ballads, and a lot of great different styles of music, just like they did in their previous albums. Plus, they debuted a new toy, a synthesizer. This was the first Queen album to actually use a synthesizer, the Oberheim OBXA, which was a synthesizer that was being popularized at the time by the likes of Billy Joel on Glass Houses, were released the same year. Styx on Cornerstone, because Dennis DeYoung had not 1, but 2, count 'em, 2 Oberheim OBXAs. One with his regular keyboard setup, and then another one perched on top of his Fender Rhodes. I'll talk more about that in the Cornerstone episode, which I'll air at some point, because another album of theirs is kind of jockeying for attention to be done, which is the infamous Kilroy Was Here. But yeah, back to Queen. So the game was ready, released, and the reception of the album, I'll tell you how well it did at the end. But let me tell you my backstory with this album. I was familiar with 3 of the tracks, which were the aforementioned Crazy Little Thing, Another One Bites the Dust, and Play the Game, because they were all on the American released version of Queen's Greatest Hits, which was the first Queen album I ever heard and owned, albeit a recorded dubbed cassette version of it, in December of 1990. This was when Queen's catalog was out of print here in the States. And the songs in that Greatest Hits were Another One Bites the Dust, Bohemian Rhapsody, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, Killer Queen, Fat Bottom Girls single edit, Bicycle Race, Under Pressure, which was a brand new song in the album, the duet with David Bowie. Then side 2, that was side 1. Side 2 was We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions, Flash, single version, Somebody to Love, You're My Best Friend, Keep Yourself Alive. Yes, it was a minor hit here in the States. It didn't chart, but it was a big favorite on album rock radio here in America. And Play the Game, which just missed the top 40 in the States. So with that was my introduction to Queen, and I was like, well, where do I start with an album? But then I remembered my favorite radio show, In the Studio with Redbeard, and Redbeard had done 3 Queen albums on that show. He would do a third one in 91, but until then he did 2, which were A Night at the Opera and News of the World. Then he did The Game, but I didn't hear it because I had to get to school the next morning, so it's one of the few episodes I missed. But then when it re-aired for its 15th anniversary, I recorded it and got all the interviews, hence where I got all the info for this particular album. Because remember, I'm banned from Wikipedia for life. So then, as soon as I started collecting the Queen catalog, once they were re-released on CD, after I finished collecting other bands, I finally jumped into the Queen pool, starting with A Night at the Opera. Then I made a recording of The Game, because my late oldest sister's boyfriend at the time had most of the catalog, including opera, game, news, many of the albums. So I borrowed The Game and Flash Gordon, and I was bowled over how great both albums were. And then I wound up getting News of, A Night at the Opera was the first CD I got. Then I got News of the World. Then I got Jazz, that made recordings of the other albums, and I got Day at the Races on cassette because my CD player was in the shop being fixed. So I got that in Hot Space at the same time on cassette because, Race is still a masterpiece. Hot Space, much of it is dated, but there's still some great elements. I actually like the work-in-progress mixes of some of the tracks better, and the songs better live on Queen on Fire, live at the Bowl. Then I got Live Killers on CD, Sheer Heart Attack, and then I got The Game next on CD. That was on June 4th, 1992. And that was after a schizophrenic day I had in school. I was a sophomore in high school when I first got the CD. And that day I'll never forget because it was the day I was being bullied and harassed by a bunch of punks, one of which was a wannabe version of my brother, my half-brother, who I'm estranged from, flung mashed potatoes from one part of the cafeteria, and it landed right on my back. Little did I know. And a couple of my guitar classmates in band were like, hey, dude, you got food in your back? I'm like, yeah, sure, don't get me all riled up, because they knew I had a quick temper. And I saw the big wad of mashed potato on my back, and I just literally lost my temper. And I didn't get kicked out of the cafeteria. I almost did, but luckily cooler heads prevailed, because one of the dude's buddies was on the same football team as my brother, and he feared my brother. He's like, Terrence, I wouldn't lie. That wannabe version of your brother did, I go, of your half-brother. I'm like, all right, thank you. That's all I needed to know. And then a few of my friends cheered me up and said, Terrence, don't let them get you down. They're just jerks. It's okay, it seems like the nice people tend to get crapped on, but I'm like, maybe I should become a jerk. They go, no, just still be you, you're a warm-hearted human being. I'm like, okay, all right. So they made sure I was cheered up to the stage I went home in a good mood, which they had to work overtime to do, but they did. And then I remember that day my mom took me out after school to get a CD, reason being is because her and I, she had to forfeit a visitation day because she had to go to a wedding the previous Saturday. She's like, Terrence, I feel so bad. I don't want to forfeit my visitations with you. I enjoy them. How about I buy you a CD for your troubles? I said, okay, fine. But they didn't have the Pink Floyd ones I was looking for. They had every other title. I had all the titles. I'm like, well, they don't have Adam Heart Mother. They don't have Obscured by Clouds. And they don't have Piper at the Gates of Dawn. So I go to Rush. I'm like, well, they don't have the rest of the Rush catalog yet either, Mom. And then she goes, went to another band. And I didn't think of Kiss Revenge that day. So I was like, well, here's another album from Queen I don't have on CD, which was The Game. So my mom relented and bought me the disc. Then again, she bought me my first copies of Jazz and Day at the Races and Hot Space. And from the get-go, when I got the CD, I was looking at the booklet, the credits, the lyrics, etc., etc., etc. And she also bought me a snack, a pre-dinner snack for my troubles. It was a great day. And my mom had to work hell or high water to cheer me up, which she did. And from the moment I first heard The Game, I knew this album was going to be a classic. I already wore out my dubbed copy, but now on CD. Man, oh man, I can say this. This is the best album of the 1980s that they did. This is still number one as far as their 80s output goes. And I love it so much I've had it on just about every format. LP, cassette, and CD. I never had an 8-track cartridge version of it. And one of the songs on the album was divided on the notorious 8-track cartridge format. I'll tell you which one it is when I get to it. But without further ado, because we got quite a bit to talk about with this album and its subsequent tour, I think I'll begin my love fest for The Game right this second. We begin proceedings with Freddie Mercury's ballad, Play the Game, which begins with the Oberheim synthesizers coming in backwards. They were recorded forwards, but then I think Mac flipped the tape over and it went backwards. Went man, oh man, into this ballad, which Freddie Mercury sang one of his most passionate lead vocals. Open up your mind and let me step inside. Rest your weary head and let your heart decide. It's so easy when you fall in love. It's so easy. All you have to do is fall in love. Play the game. Everybody play the game. You all know the lyrics. When you're feeling high and your resistance is low, light another, you know what, and let yourself go. This is your life. Don't play hard to get. It's a free world. All you have to do is fall in love, play the game. See, I remember the lyrics because the lyrics are on the album. And then the ballad, my game of, and then the bridge, my game of love has just begun. Love runs from my head to my toes. My love is pumping through my veins, driving me insane. And then play the game, play the game, play the game, play the game. Into the more synthesizers. Oh my goodness, just the majestic opener. Brian May's guitar solos in this track was great. The rhythm section of Roger Taylor and John Deacon right in the pocket. Freddie Mercury's piano work and vocals, and his work on the Oberheim synthesizer were all excellent. And like I said, this was the third single from the album released in the UK, and this was the lead-off single here in the United States, the second single from the album here in the United States. Because the first single was released months before the rest of the album, and the song, according to its release, because I'm on Billboard.com. Remember, I'm banned from Wikipedia. So Play the Game was the second single, and it peaked at number 42 on the Billboard Hot 100. Just missed the top 40 by 2 notches. Peaked on July 26, 1980, at number 42. So Wikipedia, stick that in your trophy case, or as Michael Borland of The Bottom Line calls it, Wickedpedia. And then a video was shot for that in May of 1980, and Freddie Mercury wore that badass Flash Gordon t-shirt. Oh my goodness. It was just them jamming the song, Freddie using a wireless microphone, John Deacon using a Kramer bass guitar, Brian May using a cheap Chinese version of a Fender Stratocaster. He did not want to have his Red Special be thrown, because the Red Special is his baby. If anything happened to his Red Special, he'd have a nervous breakdown, the poor kid, the poor guy. And then Roger Taylor using a scaled-down version of his silver Ludwig drum kit, which would be the new drum kit he would use for the subsequent tour in support of this album. And, of course, the Paiste cymbals, which were the Ludwig Paiste combo that Roger predominantly recorded during the classic era of Queen's 1973 to 1982 run. And, of course, the video is famous also for the part in the video during the bridge section where all the members of the band go, play the game. So Freddie sings it and it freezes his face, and then Brian sings it and it freezes, and then Roger sings it and it freezes, and John just does not sing and just looks at the camera and it freezes. And then when the synthesizer swell comes in, you see Freddie Mercury jump backwards onto Roger's drum riser, and then jump forward, and then wrestles the cheap Strat away from Brian May, throws it to Brian, and Brian, and it's actually the part of Brian throwing it, on an alternate take of Brian throwing it, which was then played in reverse, then back to the guitar solo. Man, oh man, those early 80s videos, pure cheese, but pure excellence. And yeah, Play the Game, great ballad. The band played it live on every show on the Game Tour in 1980 and 81. And they also played it on every show on the Hot Space Tour in 1982. And live versions can be found on Queen Rock Montreal and on Queen on Fire Live at the Bowl, as in the Milton Keynes Bowl, June 1982, released in 2007 and 2004, respectively, on CD. Both those songs, both versions are excellent. Although I do prefer the version on Montreal because it's just the 4-piece. And then instead of doing that whooshing piano synthesizer thing at the beginning of Play the Game, in the Montreal version, or any live version, Freddie Mercury would just do a little ad-lib on the piano in the key of C, just doing some different improvs to lead into the song, and then start with the do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, 5 do-do, 8 do-do-do-dos in the key of C, and then Freddie started singing. And then Freddie in live versions would sing some high notes, but not that many. So instead of going into the falsetto, everybody play the game, Roger Taylor had to do that falsetto, because Freddie Mercury, instead of doing the everybody play the game, he would go, everybody play the game of love. So he had to take the lower end live. Very smart thinking for Freddie. Unlike Joe Elliott of Def Leppard, who, no disrespect, great singer, with all due respect, great singer, but he threw out his vocal cords by singing every high note live. Freddie Mercury and Dennis DeYoung, on the other hand, knew how to go for the low end and not destroy their voices. God bless those two. But Play the Game, great track. It's on Greatest Hits Volume 1. It's also on the Gold Collection, the Platinum Collection, the original Elektra Records Greatest Hits, the Maroon Greatest Hits, which was a poor replacement for the Elektra Greatest Hits. But a great song, nevertheless, Play the Game is. And this ballad, which was the first time in Queen history that a ballad began an album, and it wouldn't be the last time that a atmospheric track would begin a Queen album either. Of course, towards the end of their career, they would begin Made in Heaven with an atmospheric song that was originated during the game sessions, believe it or not. I'll tell you more about that a little later. But Play the Game, awesome track. Not much more I can say. Now we get to the next track, which is called Dragon Attack. Man, oh man. Some people call this a funk disco exercise. It's not funk disco. It's Led Zeppelin-like rock. You could picture Robert Plant and Jimmy Page singing the damn riff. To me, it has that Page, Plant riff and lyric swagger. Oh man, oh man. What a killer track. And it was written by guitarist Brian May, and the song was constructed around a hypnotic guitar and bass riff, and tail and sound. and an uncompromising guitar and percussion are the mainstay of this piece, with Brian's unusual lyrics delivered to the max as ever by Freddie Mercury. And of course, this was actually, to me, like I said, it could have been recorded by Led Zeppelin and given a different arrangement, because it has that Jimmy Page-like riff. Freddie Mercury trying to do Robert Plant, but I could, if it was Robert Plant singing, he'd be, take me to the room where the room is all right. Ooh, yeah, yeah. My baby, my baby. Oh my goodness. Good old Freddie. Good old Percy. And then the lyrics, of course. Take me to the room where the red's all red. Take me out of my head's what I said. Take me to the room where the green's all green. And from what I've seen, it's hot, it's mean. Gonna use my stack, it's gotta be Mac. In reference to Reinhold Mack, their engineer, co-producer on this album. Gonna get me on the track, got a dragon on my back. And then Brian May's first little guitar doodle. Second verse, take me to the room where the red's all, where the beats all around, gotta eat that sound, yeah, 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 yeah. Take me to the room where the white's all black and the white's all black, take me back to the Shack Jack. She don't take no prisoners, gonna give me the business, got a dragon on my back, it's a dragon attack. Then Roger Taylor does a drum solo over the drum track, because he's still playing the regular beat, but he overdubs a drum solo, and then Freddie goes, get down. And then John Deacon comes in for a bass guitar solo, which I think is his best bass guitar solo, not called the Millionaire Waltz. And Freddie going nice and slow, woo! And then John just nailing that solo. And then Brian May unleashes the first epic guitar solo of the track after the other solos. And then, of course, him soloing it and playing that da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. And then, man, oh man, what a killer riff. It's low down, she don't take no prisoners, go down, gonna give me the business, no time, yeah, chained to the rack, showtime, got a dragon on my back, showdown, go find another customer, slow down, gotta make my way, and then the over the da-dun, da-dun, oh man. And then Brian May unleashes one final guitar solo, and then he hits some high notes on the guitar, and then Freddie Mercury does like a inhaled scream, ow, man, oh man. And this song here was played live regularly on the 1980, actually I'll talk about the fact that it was played live, but it was also originated from a jam during the recording of the game sessions, because I forgot to mention that this song's birth was actually from a jam that Brian, Roger, and John did one day at Musicland. I knew this from an interview with Redbeard that Brian and Roger did in 1991, talking about the game, when they were also talking about innuendo and outtakes from the said interview. But now, the fact that they did it live, everything except for the last part on the 1980, 81, 82 tour, in between the parts of Now I'm Here. So they would play Now I'm Here Part 1, then Freddie Mercury doing the audience, the duel with the audience, then a little jam, then into Dragon Attack, everything up to She Don't Take No Prisoners, Gonna Give Me the Business, Got a Dragon on My Back, It's a Dragon Attack, and then the guitar solo, which Brian would just improvise his solo, and then playing the da-dun, 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 and then just keep on building, and then the band would just keep on jamming on it, and jamming and jamming and jamming until it comes to a stop. And then Freddie then went back to Now I'm Here. The live version on Queen on Fire Live at the Bowl, Brian May blew 2 strings on his Red Special, if you have that film, and he had to go, had to switch guitars as quickly as possible to the Birch Yellow Red Special backup, and John Deacon did that bass solo going, it's the only time that John Deacon did the bass solo live, and he nailed it perfectly from memory. Good thing John was there to bail Brian out of a problematic performance there. Because Brian, on 2 songs in that show, Brian blew strings on his guitar. So this was the second song in the show, in as many songs, that Brian wound up having to go to the Red Special Birch wood yellow colored backup. Man, oh man. And then, of course, the jamming just ended a little differently rather than the version on Queen Rock Montreal, and then Freddie going round and around, round, and then they would do chord changes to go back into Now I'm Here. And of course, the band, and then they did a Rock in Rio 1985, and again during the first performance in Rock in Rio in January of '85. In fact, 2 weeks before my 9th birthday, Brian May blew a couple of strings, and he had to switch to his Guild Red Special backup. Man, oh man, Brian, at times, although he loved playing the track and he wrote it, sometimes when he played it, he wound up having to snap a few strings in his guitar because him playing so aggressively. But the guitar switch happened right there because it was right near his guitars rather than having to run to his guitar and switch guitars. You know, it was like, man, oh man. Pure professionalism. And the song does appear on Queen's Deep Cuts compilation, Deep Cuts Volume 2, 1977 and 1982, and one of the best songs in their catalog, and I just think a killer rockin' track, and there's not much more to add to Dragon Attack, but the Dragon Attack, for the win, kicking ass, and taking names, Chuck Norris style. Next on the game is the biggest hit single in Queen's entire career in the United States, and the song that was number one for many weeks here in the good old US of A. The John Deacon penned Another One Bites the Dust, or as Weird Al Yankovic called it, Another One Rides the Bus. I'll talk more about that later. But the song Another One Bites the Dust, which was influenced by John Deacon's first love of music, Chic. He was a fan of the band Chic, which had the song Good Times. And if you listen to both songs carefully, it has that same vibe. And the song was originally about cowboys. You know, like in the Westerns, you know, the old saying in the Western movies, according to John Deacon, was Another One Bit the Dust. But he was too afraid to show the lyrics to the rest of the band. And then he decided to rewrite the lyrics and change it to Another One Bites the Dust. Steve walks royally down the street with the brim pulled way down low, ain't no sign, the sound of his feet, machine guns ready to go. Are you ready? Hey, you ready for this? You ready? Hanging on the edge of your seat. Out in the doorways, the bullets rip to the sound of the feet. Another one bites the dust. Repeat it again. Another one gone in, another one gone, another one bites the dust. Hey, I'm going to get you too. Another one bites the dust. And it's just the bass guitar and the guitar just playing what the bass is playing. And then Brian May pulling his... and it's actually John Deacon playing the Chic rhythm electric guitar track. Brian May just doing the power chord type guitar playing on the track. And how do you think I'm going to get along without you when you're gone? You took me for everything that I had and kicked me out of my home. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? How long can you stand the heat? Out of the doorway, the bullets rip to the sound of the beat. Look out. And then a repeat of the chorus with Freddie Mercury singing both parts. And then the... Hey... Oh my goodness. A lot of songs at that point in time in rock and roll were using that same drum beat. But, you know, Pink Floyd, Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2 on the Wall, which is the same boom, 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 boom. And it wasn't, it's, in Another Brick's case, it was boom, 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 boom. Oh my goodness. That was Another Brick. And then Moving Pictures by Rush, no, The Kinks, excuse me. Moving Pictures by Rush was the following year. But Moving Pictures by the Kinks on Low Budget had a song in the same tempo. Ba-da-ba-da-dun-da-da-dun. That riff. And then, of course, now you have da-da-dun-dun-dun. The same drum beat. But what they had to do to make the drums sound like a drum machine was they had to tape Roger Taylor's drums to make them sound completely dead. Oh my goodness. And Roger Taylor hated playing that drum part. He's like, I didn't like my drums sounding dead. He wanted him like John Bonham, but John Deacon wanted to do a Chic disco type funk track, I should say. It was more funk than disco. And then Freddie Mercury going, Ba da dasta! And Brian May doing all those crazy effects with his red special guitar. And then Freddie singing, Another One Bites the Dust. Another one bites the dust. Ow! With the clap sound effects, I think, done with as rim shots. Then in the final verse, there's plenty of ways you could hurt a man and bring him to the ground. You can leave him and cheat him. You can treat him bad and leave him when he's down. But I'm ready for you. I'm sitting on my own 2 feet out of the doorway. The bullets rip, ruining the sound of the beat. And then the final chorus, man, oh man. And this song is just amazing, awesome. When Freddie Mercury, I think, read the second batch of lyrics that John wrote, he's like, John, my dear, bring in whatever songs you can. I will sing it. I know Brian and Roger would not ever sing my songs. Don't worry, John, my dear. Just bring me whatever you write. I'll sing it. So John Deacon had Freddie Mercury as his interpreter, because John could write songs, but John could not sing, unfortunately. He even told J.J. Jackson at the time of the game's release that it was the one thing he wished he could do, was sing, because it would make songwriting easier. But when you have Freddie Mercury as your singer and him singing your demos, it's like, screw this, I don't need to sing. How can I sing when you have Freddie, who's the best singer in the band? No wonder those two were tight. They were songwriting soulmates. And Freddie was the older brother figure that John needed in the band. Bless him. And the song was released as the 4th single in the UK, 3rd single from the album here in the United States, and the song, 9 months after their first number one hit, duplicated the number one hit run, as it would become the band's 2nd number one single here in the United States. After, not the next song, but the song that follows the song after the next song. I'll tell you which one it is when I get to it. But Another One Bites the Dust was the 2nd number one single, and the band didn't even think about the song being a single until the late Michael Jackson, of all people, suggested to them, because the band was playing at the Forum in LA early on in the Game tour, and Michael Jackson was sitting in the band's dressing room with them, and to do my Roger Taylor's Michael Jackson imitation, he said to the guys, I love that cut. You guys are mad if you don't release that. And Roger Taylor's like, I thought he was out of his bloody mind when he said that. And Brian May goes, that was a seldom heard tape recording of Michael Jackson you just heard there. Very rare piece of tape. Yeah, and it was released and it became a big hit. Yeah, so the song was released because DJs in New York City picked up on it. And then the record company, kind of caved in and released it anyway. And it became a blockbuster. And it octupled the sales of the album. I mean, it was already sitting at 1 million, but then it wound up selling even more copies. And a lot of people, when they first heard that song, thought Queen were a black group, but were kind of mortified that they were sort of pinkish, as Brian May told Redbeard on In the Studio for the making of the game. But the song, no matter how many times I've heard it, has become a staple of, dance beats. Even professional wrestlers use it as entrance music. The Junkyard Dog back in NWA, his early run in World Wrestling Federation back until Grab Them Cakes came along, because Vince McMahon did not want to pay the members of Queen a good chunk of money for licensing fees for the Junkyard Dog. But yeah, I associate that song with JYD, Junkyard Dog. And the song was also used in all sorts of different things. Yeah, the Junkyard Dog using it as his wrestling theme. And then the song was also notorious for being on an episode of WKRP in Cincinnati, where Johnny Fever cut the song off early after the final Another One Bites the Dust, and goes, and not a moment too soon either, babies. That was Queen with their big hit, a record I really don't care for, but I'm nevertheless forced to play by our new program director, Venus Flytrap. On WKRP, babies. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Johnny Fever hated this song. Man, oh man. Yeah, unlike the movie FM, which had We Will Rock You, KRP had Another One Bites the Dust. And how can anyone hate this song? I still think it's a killer tune. And this song not only went to number one on the pop charts, but also the soul chart and the disco chart. Oh man. And like many of the songs in this album, this song was a live staple. It wasn't played early on in the tour in support of the game for the first month of the touring cycle, but once the song was released as a single, they added it to the show, and it eventually became the first encore So it became the first encore once the song was a huge hit. And Another One Bites the Dust wound up being played at every Queen show subsequently. And Roger Taylor adding more of a live drum sound to make it kick a lot of ass. John Deacon playing the Music Man Stingray bass guitar. Brian May adding a little more crunch to his guitar. And Roger Taylor had to sing the high Another One Bites the Dust parts. And Freddie Mercury, of course, took the low end live. And live versions do appear on the following live documents. Queen Rock Montreal 1981. Also appears on Queen on Fire Live at the Bowl 82. Then also appears on Live at Wembley 86. And also Hungarian Rhapsody live in, what was that place? Live in Budapest 1986. So it appears on quite a few live Queen albums. And yeah, this was one of several songs that they played with Paul Rodgers in the band. One of them, the previous track, Dragon Attack, was one of them I forgot to mention. Was also sung by Adam Lambert, who to me sounds like Elmo meets Rob Halford meets Jeff Tate hitting a blender on puree. And Paul Rodgers sang this on his first tour with Queen, as Queen and Paul Rodgers in 2005. A live version appears on the Return of the Champions album and the Live in Ukraine CD, DVD document, which is now out of print. But yeah, the version with Paul Rodgers on Return of the Champions is just as ass-kicking, and they lowered the key from E to D minor. So it had that, sounded more menacing in D minor. And Paul Rodgers, man oh man, he put his own stamp on it, and he kicked some ass when he sang the damn thing. Because how can anyone hate Paul Rodgers? I mean, I know he couldn't sing as high as Freddie Mercury, but Paul Rodgers is the man. Gave it more of a ballsy sort of baritone, ass-kicking voice. Adam Lambert just ruined the damn thing. All I can say about Another One Bites the Dust is that the song is still amazing after all these years. I haven't gotten tired of it. I don't think I ever will. A lot of people are tired of it. Namely, my former podcast co-host on a certain show that I've left behind a long time ago. But Another One Bites the Dust rules. Not much more I can add, but a killer epic track. Now we come to a song called Need Your Loving Tonight, another John Deacon track. Need Your Loving Tonight was the fourth and final single from the Game released here in the United States. And John Deacon, I think, may have been listening to some Cheap Trick or The Knack or the Beatles with this song. Because it has that power pop rockin' thing that, man oh man. One of my favorite John Deacon rock tunes, and I think this was the last rocker he wrote for the band. No, I'll never look back in anger. No, I'll never find me an answer. You promised me you'd keep in touch. I read your letters and it hurt me so much. I said I'd never be angry with you. I don't want to act like a stranger because I'd rather... I don't want to act like a stranger. I'd rather stay out of danger. Trying hard so many ways, oh man, you changed me, did I say. Oh, I need your loving tonight. Oh my goodness. She won't know how much I know till I miss her. Dead. I'm reciting the lyrics because they're so amazing. I think John Deacon must have been listening to some Cheap Trick. Then again, Cheap Trick opened for Queen back in 1977 on a few scarce shows of the Day of the Races tour before their first album. And then they toured, opening for Queen more so on the News of the World tour. So John, I think, had an ear out for Cheap Trick and The Knack and the Beatles. Because it has that power pop rock sound. Oh my goodness. And this song, I've always loved it. Ooh, I need your lovin'. Ooh, I need your lovin'. And then Brian May's guitar solo just kicking everyone right square in the pants, just shredding like no tomorrow, kicking everybody right in the nuts. Then Freddie singing brilliantly. No, I'll never look back in anger. No, I'll never feel like a stranger. Gave me no warning. How could I guess? How could I learn to forgive and forget? Man, oh man. This song is awesome. One of the best songs John Deacon ever wrote. And sadly, it turned out to be the last rocker that John Deacon ever wrote for the band. I mean, he kept writing songs, but not rockin' tunes like this. I mean, he was the secret weapon. And This song, like I said, was released as the fourth and final single from the album here in the States, but sadly it just missed the top 40 by one stinking notch. Damn Barbra Streisand to Hell, and Guilty, and Everybody's Got a Hungry Heart. Oh shit, I should get constipated, then I could re-record that. Oh my god. Anyway, I digress. So, Queen missed out on having another top 10 hit. The song stalled at number 41. But a killer rockin' track, and this song didn't make that Greatest Hits album nor Deep Cuts. Because this song should have been on either of them, because it was a single here in the States. So what if it didn't make the top 40? It's still a great tune. Rock radio played the piss out of it. Queen played it on their 1980 North American tour in support of the game. They played it every night on the North American leg, and they also played it on many of the shows in 1981 in South America. Then it was dropped after, I think the South American gigs, they got dropped, and was sadly lost in the shuffle to the passage of time. And I'm not talking Time Passages either from Al Stewart. Oh my goodness. Great track. Great album. But Need Your Lovin' Tonight, man oh man. Do I love the song? Absolutely. Should have been a number one single? You goddamn right. Pardon my French, oh Lord, I didn't mean to curse in your name. But Need Your Lovin' Tonight, boy does this song rule. I still love it to this day. Even my 2014 counterpart on Rock Metal Combat agreed that it was great. Still love the tune. And now we get to the song that closes side one and was the first single from the album. And a song that was one of the most infamous, or as they say in the Three Amigos.
I mean, infamous.
Oh, Dusty. Infamous is when you're more than famous. This man, El Guapo, is not just famous, he's infamous.
Wow, the infamous? Infamous?
Yeah. The song that closed side one and was the first single from the game, Crazy Little Thing Called Love. And this song, contrary to the opinion of my old podcast colleague Ian Wadley, this was written whilst Freddie Mercury was taking a bubble bath in Munich at a hotel he was staying at. Not too far from the studio. It was at the Munich Hilton Hotel in Munich. He was taking a bubble bath. He was in a bubble bath. And he said to one of his assistants, "My dear, I just got a song in my head." And he just grabbed an acoustic guitar and played while he was in the bubble bath. Played the track, and then he said to Roger and John, "Guys, let's go to the studio. I got this idea." And it turned out to be the song Crazy Little Thing Called Love, which was the band's, Freddie's homage to rockabilly, especially the king, Elvis Presley. Yeah, that guy. The guy that Slobzilla hates very much. Wadzilla hates Elvis. I think Elvis Presley was the man. He was the king. They didn't call him the king of rock and roll for kicks and giggles. He was the king. But then again, Wadzilla was a fan of Chuck Berry, who slept with 14 and 15-year-old girls. And Little Richard, who was a little fruity in the pants. And Jerry Lee Lewis, who married his 13-year-old cousin. Oh, man. I'll never forget that fight. Him and I arguing about that particular track. And the song really did kick in with that rockabilly revival that was going on in music at that time. And, you know, bands like the Stray Cats, Rockpile, Dave Edmunds, Nick Lowe, they were reviving the rockabilly sound. And Freddie Mercury was playing a Martin 6-string acoustic, John Deacon on bass guitar, Roger Taylor on drums. And they had the track in the can. And then Brian May comes in the recording studio. He goes, "Sheesh, I got to play something on this track. This song sounds great." So he grabs his Fender Telecaster and was going to actually grab his Red Special and was going to, he's like, and then Mac had something to say about that. "Mac, don't worry. I can make my guitar sound like a Fender Telecaster, no problem." "No, Brian, if you want to play if you want to sound like Fender Telecaster, play Fender Telecaster." So Brian's like, I own a Fender Telecaster. What am I going to do? And Roger Taylor, luckily, had a few. He's like, Brian, don't worry. You can borrow mine. You just got to buy one for you. And Brian's like, okay, thank you, Roger, for this. And then Brian went in the studio with the Telecaster, knocked that guitar solo out in, I think, just a few takes. And the song turned out to be the song that was one of the biggest hits of Queen's career and their first #1 single in America. This Thing Called Love, I just can't handle it. This thing called love, I just can't get around to it. Are you ready? Crazy little thing called love. It cries like a baby in the cradle all night. It swings, it jives, shakes all over like a jellyfish, kind of like it. Crazy little thing called love. There goes my baby. She knows how to rock and roll. She drives me crazy. She gives me dry go fever. She leaves me in a cold, cold sweat. Do 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 da 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 da. I try to be cool, relax, get hit, get on the tracks, flip the backseat, hitchhike, take a long ride on my motorbike. Are you ready? Crazy little thing called love. Brian May's guitar solo, short and precise, but amazing. And his guitar work on this track was just great. And then the band played it live on the 1979 Crazy Tour of Britain, where Freddie played an Ovation 12-string acoustic guitar and Brian May played Telecaster for the first half of the song up to the guitar solo, then switched to the Red Special for the ending solo. But then once the game tour went ahead properly, it still mirrored that way for the first US leg or so, with Freddie on acoustic, John on bass, Roger on drums, Brian on Telecaster for the first minute and a half, the first few verses, and the guitar solo. The first guitar solo. Then he switches guitars during the second Gotta Be Cool, Relax, switches to his Red Special for the ending, and then adopted the 3-guitar approach, starting with a Fender 12-string acoustic, then switching to his Telecaster for the solo, then switching to the Red Special for the latter part. And that continued on through live performances from September 1980 up through October of 1982 in Japan. Live versions like that are on Queen Rock Montreal in 1981, and on Queen on Fire Live at the Bowl and Queen Live in Japan 1982, which is lying out of print. And out of those live versions, and also on Saturday Night Live, Queen's only U.S. performance in 1982. And yeah, when they played this live, man oh man, Freddie with the acoustic, and his intros to the song, he'd be like, yeah, about 10 years ago, I only knew 3 chords on the guitar. Now in 1982, I still know 3 chords on the guitar. Bing, bing, bing. Before this, he would introduce, do some hilarious introduction. And then roasting the keyboard player on the Hot Space Tour, Morgan Fisher on the piano, in that wonderful pink. He's either AC or he's DC, I don't know. This is for all you crazy people out there. Right into the song. Hilarious. Freddie Mercury's sense of humor, untouched. I wish the movie Bohemian Rhapsody did show more of Freddie's sense of humor, not the parody of his character, but the real Freddie was just a goofball. God bless Freddie. And the song was played again on the Works tour, where Freddie wound up buying a Telecaster of his own. And yeah, that cream yellow colored Telecaster, which was since stolen. And that was on the performances on the 1984, 85, and 86 tours. So it went from before Bohemian Rhapsody to the closing song of the set, before the encores, as of the Magic Tour. And then when it was performed live in 1992 at the Concert for Life, Robert Plant, who was a big Elvis Presley nut swinger, that Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin, sang Crazy Little Thing with Queen. It was sort of apropos, and Brian switched guitars again, so he had a new 12-string acoustic electric hybrid guitar. I forgot what brand. It was like a white Godin 12-string. Then he switched to the Red Special for the rest. And Robert Plant paying homage to his hero, Elvis Presley, and also honoring his friend Freddie Mercury, singing Crazy Little Thing. Perfect. Then on all the shows with the Queen and Paul Rogers tour, Paul Rogers sang it perfectly, playing a classical nylon, classical electric acoustic guitar. A live version appears on Return of the Champions. Amazing, because Brian May introduced Paul Rogers, and Paul Rogers, after Brian May showered him with praise, said, "Thank you, Brian, God bless ya," in that Yorkshire accent of Paul Rogers. And he did a damn good job singing it. And another live version appears on Live in Ukraine. And has appeared on every Queen Greatest Hits album you could think of. Greatest Hits 1, the Maroon Greatest Hits, also Gold Collection, Platinum Collection, the Queen Collection. Sheesh, it's appeared on just about every collection that Queen has thrown out. Christ almighty. I apologize for saying my Lord and Savior's name, but it's figure of speech. Great track. I don't like Adam Lambert singing it, though, because he sounds like Elmo meets Rob Halford meets Jeff Tate thrown into a blender on puree. God. And I hate Sesame Street. Mr. Rogers rules. We wish Mr. Rogers was still around. You know, neighbor, I don't like Elmo. Can you say Elmo's a loser? I knew you could. Sorry, Mr. Rogers imitation right there, folks. Shows you have a warped sense of humor. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, this song I love, much to the horror and chagrin of Wadzilla, my old podcast colleague, who thinks Elvis Presley was horrible. I mean, if it wasn't for Elvis Presley, we wouldn't have had the Beatles or the Stones or the Who or anybody. Elvis was the originator. He was the king. Even David Gilmour loved Elvis. Roger Waters hated Elvis. Gilmour, major fan of the king. And in fact, Gilmour said if he had lived, he would have probably played on an Elvis record. So David knows that Elvis was the king. Freddie knew that Elvis was the king. Everyone knew Elvis was the king. Long live Elvis. And crazy little thing, perfect homage to the king himself, Elvis Presley. And those who don't like Elvis Presley, to quote DX,
"We got 2 words for you!"
Thank you very much indeed. Now we flip the album over to side 2 for the Roger Taylor penned Rocket Prime Jive. Boy, do I have something to say about this song. When I did this review album with Rock Metal Combat over 11 years ago, in my penultimate episode with that group, with that show, I was the only one prepared for this album because my X2 colleagues absolutely disdain this track. Well, to Ralph Ear's credit, he did like the intro of Freddie singing, which is one of the great things about Queen. You think you're going to get something, then you get hit with something else. And Freddie starts the song with the "When I Hear That Rock and Roll," kind of almost like you're thinking like another 50s track. Da 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 da. It gets down to my soul when it's real rock and roll. You're thinking it's going to be like that, then all of a sudden it kicks into hard drive, hard rock, and you really think they like to rock in space? Well, I don't know. What do you know? What do you hear? And you hear bits of synthesizer. But hey, it was 1979 going into 80, so what the hell? On the radio, coming through the air, I said, "Mama, I ain't crazy. I'm alright." See, I'm singing the damn thing because it's so awesome. I love this song. "Come on, baby," said "it's alright to rock and roll on a Saturday night." I said, "Get your suit and come on with me." See, I'm remembering the damn song because it's so catchy, so hooky. What do you do to get the feel alive? You go downtown, get some of that prime jive. Man, oh man. Roger Taylor's Rod Stewart-esque like vocals on this track with the rasp. Man, oh man. Roger knew how to write a great rock tune. And then Brian May's batshit guitar solo where he's just going to town on it. And then Roger coming back in to sing some more. And then doing the "Ow, tonight we want some prime jive" harmonies from Freddie, Brian, and Roger. And John Deacon playing some solid bass. The Oberheim OBX is going bazonkas, berserk. And Freddie and Roger Taylor just singing, "Whoa, getting a rocket tonight. Come on, come on, come on, honey. Get some of that prime jive." Man, oh man. This song is just amazing, excellent. Queen did play it a handful of times during the Game Tour of 1980-81, but didn't survive in the setlist line. Freddie Mercury had to sing the track because Roger Taylor probably would have thrown out his voice singing it. He already had his singing spot in concert by then with I'm in Love with My Car, and this song would actually open up some shows on the Hot Space Tour of North America in 1982. Yes, this song was a setlist opener. After walking on the stage to the Flash theme of all things. Man, oh man. And this song does appear on Deep Cuts Volume 2 as one of the 3 songs from the game to do so. And Redbeard of In the Studio fame thought it highly enough to play it on the episode spotlighting on the game. Man, oh man. And anyone who doesn't like this song, I feel sorry for you. Because this song is excellent. To quote Bill and Ted, the song kicks reconnaissance ass as the Marine Corps would say, "Oorah." And if you don't like it, so be it. But Rocket Prime Jive, man, oh man, oh man. No matter how many times I've heard this rockin' tune, I like to crank it up to 11, like Spinal Tap. Rocket Prime Jive for the win. Now we get to a song which should be the anti-suicide anthem. Freddie Mercury's Don't Try Suicide. Yeah, it's another song I had to defend when I was on Rock Metal Combat back in the day. And Ian Wadley, bless him, said more people should be killing themselves when they hear this song. What's wrong with that dude? Is he really that sadistic? Oh yeah, he's got dark, twisted humor. Ralph wasn't more sympathetic, because I actually was in between those two about to defend the song, and I got shouted down 2-1. Not, you know what I mean. They razzed me for liking it. But I think the song is uplifting, great message, a great tune. It's my least favorite on the album, but I still love it. I mean, it's kind of, some people say it's hokey, but it's a positive message of not to kill yourself. I mean, if Kurt Cobain ever heard this track and he was in a bout of depression, Freddie Mercury would have snapped him right out of it. Don't do that. You got a good thing going now. Don't do it. Don't try suicide. Nobody's worth it. Don't try suicide. Nobody cares. Don't try suicide. You're just going to hate it. No, don't try suicide. Nobody gives a damn. And the bass guitar riff kind of reminds me of the Police's Walking on the Moon. The bum ba ba bum ba dum ba doo 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 doo. Kind of ba doo 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 ding ga doo doo doo. See, it has that Police Sting Walking on the Moon bass line type thing going through the whole song. With, so you think it's the easy way out? Think you're gonna slash your wrist this time? Oh my goodness. All you do is get on my tits. Don't do that. Drown, 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 baby. See, I'm singing the damn tune because it's so catchy. And yeah, a very positive song telling you that suicide's not the way to do it. If you have problems, get some help. Talk to a priest. Talk to a friend. Talk to a family member that you trust that's not going to sell you down the river. Talk to someone that's not a weasel. Life is too good. Life is awesome. Life is amazing. Don't let the dreaded S word, suicide, bring you down, because it's nowhere crap, man. I mean, I can say this as a Zennial. Microgeneration XY, folks, 1976 to 82. Those of us who were not buying into the Gen X rhetoric of suicide being cool, it's not cool. It's stupid. And this song should be played to anyone who's thinking of taking their life. They should have like a Freddie Mercury pop out and sing the song to you. If they had done a video for this track, it probably would have been like Freddie Mercury recreating. I know Billy Joel nicked it, but I think Freddie Mercury would have been a cooler guardian angel a la It's a Wonderful Life. Oh man. In the long list of songs of telling you not to kill yourself. It's like you get your second win in life, and taking your life is not cool. I've had moments of depression, and I thought of it, but then I thought of my friends and my family. I said, nah, they'd be heartbroken if I, in a moment of mental depression and despair, decided to check out. Life is too good. Life is fragile, folks. This song saved my ass from even thinking of attempting to off myself. And if more people like this song would be the anti-suicide national anthem. Because it's that great. But then again, people like to listen to sadder songs about offing yourself. I mean, this and Your Only Human Second Wind by Billy Joel are the kind of the uplifting anti-suicide tracks. Very serious lyrics, but uplifting pieces of music. The Past by Rush, great track, anti-suicide, but also kind of sad in the music department. I mean, it's not worth taking your life. And Freddie Mercury's right on this track. All you're going to do is harm yourself. And you need help when you're down in the dumps. Sadly, Queen never played this track live, but this song, beautiful. And if you don't like this song, deep down in your heart, you have love for nobody. Don't Try Suicide for the win. Next, we get to The Ballad of an Only Child. Just kidding. It's called Sail Away, Sweet Sister, written and sung by guitarist Brian May, dedicated to the sister he never had. And I know a bit about the song because in an interview with Redbeard on the making of the game, when it first aired in 91 and again in 95, Brian May talked to Redbeard about the song because Redbeard asked him about it. And Roger Taylor jokingly said, "You should have called the song The Ballad of an Only Child." And Brian goes, "Yeah, I've always lamented about the fact that I was an only child and I didn't have another sibling or another woman in my life to share my problems with." Share his deep, dark secrets that he couldn't share with his parents, but with a sibling. And he always wanted a younger sibling. Sadly, it was never meant to be. And Brian May does a brilliant job singing the lead vocal. Very Paul McCartney-like in his voice. "Hey, little baby, you're changing. Babe, are you feeling sore? There ain't no use in pretending you don't want to play no more. It's plain that you ain't no baby. What would your mother say? You're all dressed up like a lady. How come you behave this way?" And the chorus, "Sail away, sweet sister, sail across the sea. Maybe you'll find somebody to love you half as much as me. My heart is always with you no matter what you do. Sail away, sweet sister, I'll always be in love with you." Then that acoustic guitar solo that acoustic guitar that he used on White Queen on Queen 2, Jealousy on Jazz. It was like that little toy acoustic guitar thing that he had. Then he would use it again on Too Much Love Will Kill You on Back to the Light. "Forgive me for what I've told you. My heart makes a fool of me. You know I'll never hold you. I know that you got to be free." And then the second chorus, repeating much of the first part, and then the second, "Take it the way you want it, but when they let you down, my friend, sail away, sweet sister, back to my arms again." And then the bridge, or the middle eight, Freddie Mercury takes over. And that's where you hear the falsetto part was Freddie. Because until I read about it, I thought it was Brian doing all the vocals. It turns out it was Freddie singing the falsetto section. "Hot child, don't you know that you're young and you got your whole life ahead of you and you can throw it away too soon, way too soon." And Brian singing one of the harmonies, Roger doing the highest bit. Into Brian's Red Special guitar solo, just kicking everybody in the ass, Chuck Norris style. Brian then coming in at the very end, singing the final chorus one more time, delivering one of his best lead vocals on a Queen album. This was actually the last full lead vocal on a Queen album for Brian. And he picked a perfect song to go out on. This one. I mean, he would continue to do odd vocal appearances on future albums, but no solo lead vocal after this. And the song ends with the song fading away, and John Deacon does an amazing bass guitar solo, which will have you choked up when you hear it because it's so moving. And the band thought of it highly enough to include on the Queen Deep Cuts 2 compilation. And yeah, the song is that beautiful. And yeah, Redbeard played on quite a few episodes of In the Studio for the making of the game. Every airing of it going all the way back to 91. And Sail Away, Sweet Sister should have been a single, but the band didn't think to release it as a single, so it kind of got lost in the shadows of songs that could have been a hit in an alternate universe, but sadly wasn't meant to be. But then again, having more than 4 singles from an album was unheard of in those days. That was until Michael Jackson came along with Thriller, Prince with Purple Rain, Def Leppard with Hysteria, Michael Jackson with Bad. Then everybody and their mother released albums with like 5 or 6 singles from the damn thing. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Queen, I think, knowing to stop at 4 was the perfect idea. But Sail Away, Sweet Sister, beautiful song, not much more I can say. Great track. Then we come to the penultimate song in the album, another Roger Taylor rockin' track called Coming Soon. And yeah, this was another song that I love, but my ex-podcast colleagues disdain. They loathe this track. And the drums kick in with some flanger from Roger Taylor, and then Roger doing the ooh, ooh, oh, 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 and then Freddie Mercury doing multi-track lead vocals. I get some headaches when I hit the heights, like in the morning after crazy nights, like some mother-in-law in her nylon tights. They're always coming soon. Coming soon on the outside of the tracks. The same old babies with the same old toys. And the neighbors screaming with the noisy noise. Somebody nagging you when you're out with the boys. Then a repeat of the chorus. Then the yeah, yeah, yeah. Brian May's guitar solo just kicking everyone right squirt in the pants. They're always coming soon on the outside of the tracks. Coming soon on the outside of the tracks. Very short song. I think it's the shortest song in the album, but not short on ideas and not short of greatness, because this song sort of helping usher in the new decade, although it was recorded in 1979, along with the previous track. But this song kind of foreshadowing the new wave of rock thing that was taken off at that point in time. Roger Taylor always had his finger on the pulse with new sounds. And this song was kind of predicting the new wave that was going to sweep everybody off their feet. I mean, new wave did pretty well, but, new wave kind of overtook, new wave kind of overtook things to an extent, but then hard rock was at its door and heavy metal like, oh yeah? We're going to make new wave obsolete. Oh my goodness. It would turn into one of those wars between new wave and metal. Rock and roll was in a civil war in those days. But Coming Soon, a great track. And if you had the 5.1 mix of the album, you have an alternate lead vocal, which I thought people would joke. And then I went and listened to it on YouTube. And I'm like, sheesh. I'm glad they couldn't find the original vocal tracks. They had to use an alternate lead vocal for the 5.1 mix, but the original lead vocal, as on the album, great. The alternate vocal is okay, but comparing it to the original album version, kind of weak. But the version as it stands on the album, the original stereo mix, definitive version of Coming Soon. Anyway, Coming Soon, amazing song. Not much more to the song I can add, but a great, catchy, upbeat ditty that I digs. Now we come to the end of the album with another ballad, the Brian May penned ballad, Save Me, which basically, according to Brian May in an interview with Redbeard, is about a person who was in a relationship that was totally fucked up. Yeah, pardon my French, but that was the exact words to Redbeard about the synopsis of the song, and it's about a relationship that completely went straight to hell. A beautiful ballad. It started off so well, said we made a perfect pair. I closed again with my glory in yourself, how I loved you, how I cried. The years of care and loyalty were nothing but a sham it seemed. The years belied, we lived the lie, I love you till I die. And then the band kicks in with the chorus. Save me, I can't face this life alone. Save me 2 more times, I'm naked and I'm far from home. And then the second verse, the slate will soon be clean. I'll erase the memory to start again with somebody new. Was it all wasted, all that love? I hang my head and I advertise a soul for sale or rent. I have no heart, I'm cold inside, I have no real intent. And then the second chorus kicking in, and then the solo section, which is, I think, the first part of it is synthesizer and guitar, and then multi-track guitars, and then Freddie coming in with the final Each Night I Love You. Each night I cry, I still believe the lie, I love you till I die. And then does some screams as Brian does an amazing guitar solo. And then the final, save me, save me. You know, like, I can't face this life alone. Save me. I'm naked and I'm far from home. And ending with that beautiful piano melody to bring everything to a close. The song was released as the second single from the album in advance of the album in the UK, and we used a different mix because on the album version, Freddie's voice is not in flange except for the choruses and part of the second verse. But the rest of the song was in his natural voice. On the single mix, his voice was drenched in flanger. Had a lot of effects on his voice on the original single mix that was released in the UK, was never released in the United States. And the song was a top 20 hit in the UK, parts of Europe, and it was an album track here in the United States. And the band did play it on every show from, I think, the end of 79, going all the way into 1982. So this song was played on every night of the Game tour in the United States, and every night of the 1981 part of the tour, and the Hot Space tour. So it started with Brian May on piano for the first half of the song, Freddie singing, then Brian kicks in on the guitar at the second chorus, and then Freddie takes over on the piano for Brian May's guitar solo, and Freddie does a little piano solo going dun 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 dun. If you have the live version from Queen Rock Montreal, which is amazing, and then Freddie singing the each night I cried, I still believe the lie, I love you till I die, give it to me. And keeps on playing the piano as Brian does that guitar solo, just knocking out of the park. And then Freddie stands up, grabs the mic, and finishes the song. And man, oh man. And there's two live versions available. One on Queen Rock Montreal 1981, aka the We Will Rock You concert film, reissued in 2007 as Queen Rock Montreal. And the other is Queen on Fire Live at the Bowl 1982, which has Brian on piano, then the guitar when the drums and bass come in, and Morgan Fisher on keyboards, and Freddie walking the stage more and more. But a great song nevertheless, and the song does appear on Greatest Hits 1 in most countries. Didn't appear in the US version because it wasn't a single in America. But what a song Save Me is. One of the most overlooked gems in the Queen catalog. It should have been a big hit in America, but never mind. But what an amazing song. And it does appear on the Gold Collection, the Platinum Collection, even the Queen Collection. Boy, oh boy. And a video was shot for this track, as was another one, Bites the Dust. And this was shot at the end of December 79. It was the last time Freddie would appear on camera clean-shaven until the video for I Want to Break Free, where he appeared in part of that video clean-shaven, and then he would get rid of the mustache for the promotional photos for the Miracle album, and then get rid of the mustache and beard once and for all, filming the last videos of his career for I'm Going Slightly Mad and Days of Our Lives. Freddie was an original. And Save Me, a beautiful way to end an amazing Queen album. But that was all recorded for the album, because there was two other songs recorded. One of which was a B-side. The Roger Taylor penned A Human Body, which Roger sings lead vocal, plays most of the guitars, along with Brian May, John Deacon on bass, and Roger Taylor on vocoder. And Roger Taylor on lead vocal, Captain Scott and his heroes to be. Da-da-da-da-da. Ooh, it's been such a long way. Time. You know, it's been such a long way for a human. And then the Mr. Roboto vocoder voice, human, for a human body to see. Can you believe it happens now? It happens here. Do you believe, or really care? See, I'm singing the damn thing because it's so catchy and hooky. And yeah, I was the only one who knew about that track when I did the review of Rock Metal Combat. They didn't even know the song existed. I'm like, wait a second, you forgot to talk about the B-side to Play the Game, A Human Body, which was recorded during the album, but was left off the album because of time constraints. And amongst some of the lyrics of Roger Taylor, mentions the Lone Ranger, the Invisible Man, which Queen, he would then write a song called Invisible Man 9 years later for the Miracle album by Queen. Who would have thunk that? Oh my goodness. You know, it's been such a long time. You know, it's been such a long way for a human. Human. Oh my goodness. You think maybe Mr. Styx may have nicked this from Mr. Roboto? You be the judge. The vocoder voice. And then the song ends with Roger going, it's been such a long time, it's been such a long time, it's been such a long way, been a long way, yeah, you know it's gonna be alright. Man, oh man. A Human Body, a song that should have been on the Game album, but they didn't want too long of an album side, because in those days of vinyl, you could only fit so much on a vinyl record. And I think if you add this track, the album would have clocked in around 39 minutes rather than 35 and a half minutes. It would have been more than 39 minutes, which is fine. But a great song, nevertheless. And then the first ideas of a song called It's a Beautiful Day started, which was just Freddie at the piano, just messing around towards the end of the recording of the Game. And this song would not be finished until 15 years later for Made in Heaven. And this piece appears on the bonus disc of the Game Deluxe Edition released in 2011, and Like a Human Body is on that said Deluxe Edition. What a beautiful, beautiful track. Freddie wrote it on the spur of the moment, and it should have been a hit and yeah, it should have been finished for the Game, but you know, they were running out of time and they had a deadline to get the album finished, so the song was put on the shelf until the Made in Heaven sessions a few years after Freddie Mercury passed away. But It's a Beautiful Day, great track, and now I know its birth was during the Game sessions. And those are the two songs that are not on the album that are bonus tracks on the Game Deluxe Edition. But when the Game album properly was released in June 1980, it went to number one in the band's native England, and it was the first and only Queen album to top the US Billboard album chart, for 5 consecutive weeks. The Game was the number one album on Billboard for 5 weeks, dethroning then label-mate Jackson Browne's Holdout out of number one. And the Game stayed put for 5 weeks, went platinum almost immediately, and because of the song Another One Bites the Dust being number one, so Queen were one of the few bands to have, like Pink Floyd earlier that year with a number one single and album, Another Brick in the Wall and The Wall, respectively, Queen duplicated with Another One Bites the Dust and The Game, respectively. So Queen had lock, stock, and barrel, a stranglehold on number one on the Billboard pop chart and number one on the album chart. And this album to date has sold over 4 million copies in just the United States alone, tying it as Queen's best-selling studio album. And the band thought of it highly enough to tour behind it, and Brian May actually shared the news of the album hitting number one on stage in Milwaukee in 1980. He said, "Thanks to you people, we want to thank you for pushing our new album, which has just gone to number one on Billboard with a bullet." So at the height of Queen mania, the Game was the pinnacle, and for many years the last perfect album Queen would do, in my mind until 1989's The Miracle. Although Hot Space, The Works, and A Kind of Magic are good albums, as is the soundtrack to Flash Gordon, it kind of paled in comparison to the Game. Man, oh man, oh man. And the success of the Game just ensured that Queen were one of the most popular bands to come out of England, with a big blockbuster album in 1980, and throughout 81 they were still pretty popular. And at the tail end of 1980, as the Game was still riding high on Billboard, they released the soundtrack to the movie Flash Gordon, which I now stand corrected was released in December of 1980 in both the US and the UK. And this was the soundtrack to the movie Flash Gordon, which my introduction to it was when I first heard the Game album, 92, and then I got the CD in July 92. And this album is predominantly instrumental except for 2 songs that had vocals. So I'll do a quick summary of the album, my opinions of each track. First was Flash's theme, aka Flash, which was released as the single without the introduction from the film and without the film sound bites. With the extra film sound bites on the single. But on the album version, it began with Max von Sydow's voice of Clytus on board, obscure body, your majesty. Right into Flash, aka Flash's theme, which again just missed the top 40. Peaking at number 41 again. It did well in the UK, but here in the States it stiffed. I don't know why. But this song is majestic, amazing, killer track. The band did play it live on the 1981 portion of their, what was that tour? The tour in support of The Game and Flash Gordon, aka the Gluttons for Punishment tour of 1981. And they started playing it in England and Japan in the late 81. And this was played after Roger Taylor and Brian May's guitar solo spots, of all things. And Freddie Mercury, instead of singing he sang with a mighty hand in the high falsetto, Roger Taylor had to scream it so Freddie could sing that part an octave lower. And just a man with a man's courage, nothing but a man. You could never fail, no one but the pure in heart can find the golden grail. Amazing track. In the in the space capsule, the love theme, written by drummer Roger Taylor, features his prowess on guitars, synthesizers, and percussion. So Roger Taylor was a man of many tricks of trades on this track. And then an awesome instrumental. Then you had Ming's theme in the Court of Ming the Merciless. Freddie Mercury using that Oberheim OBX to create that sinister sound, as if the devil was coming from hell to conquer Earth. Man, oh man. Great instrumental. In the film, they had the speeches, the tributes of the Hawkmen and the Men of Ardentia, which the film version of the people of Ardentia sounded better than the version that appeared on the album. We, the people of Ardentia, we suffered since you blasted our kingdom. I can offer nothing to you this year except our loyalty. On the album, it sounded more like, we, the people of Ardentia. I like the film version better. And on top of that, in the film, it was longer because he had the speech from the Hawkmen and the fight between Vulcan and Prince Baron. Vulcan was like the comic relief of that movie. The famed Ice Jewel. Oh, man. May this be a lesson to all the people of Mungo. Death to Ming. I like that better than on the record. This Ming's a psycho. This Ming is a psycho. That was excised from the album. And then, Who Are You? Flash Gordon, quarterback, New York Jets. Dale Arden, Your Highness. Live and let live. That's my motto. I'm Han Zarkov. I'm a scientist. I kidnapped them here in an effort to save our Earth. The obscure body in the SK system. The satellite's been giving you much amusement recently. But why? The only thing we're interested in is friendship. Why do you attack us? Why not? The Zarkov Clytus and first part of Ming's exchange was excised from the soundtrack album. Pathetic earthlings hurling your body out in the world. If you had known anything about the universe, you'd have refrained from it completely. Come closer. No, not you. You. Let us. Then into The Ring, the seduction of Dale. Dale, don't flash. Remove the Earth Woman. Prepare her. And Freddie, it's like another variation of Ming's theme, but done with a synthesizer in the higher regions. And then remove the Earth Woman. Prepare her for our pleasure. Forget it, Ming. Dale's with me. And then in the film, it goes into this orchestral piece, which was not on the album, conducted by Howard Blake. And then he's about to get his ass kicked, and then Zarkov throws Flash Gordon what looks like a football. He goes, flush, and he catches the thing. And then it kicks into Freddie Mercury's theme, The Football Fight, which is synthesizer, John Deacon's bass, Roger Taylor's drums, and Brian May's guitar. And you can picture Flash Gordon in a football game for the New York Jets. Hut, hut, sacking all those guys. Good thing they turned him into a football player, because Polo, to quote George Carlin, was nothing but, yeah, that sport. But yeah, making Flash Gordon a football hero, stroke of genius. In the football fight, "Can I just your men on the right pills? Maybe you should execute that trainer." That quote was left on the soundtrack. In the film, the other quote, "Come here, you fools. He's playing some barbaric game. Now match wits with him like this. Now." That was removed from the album. I'm like, what the hell? Should have been longer. But a great track it is, and it ends too soon when Zarkov accidentally knocks out Flash with the ball. Then we have the "In the Death Cell," which is the love theme reprise, and much of the dialogue was cut from the album. And then you see, Dale crying as Flash is about to be executed, and then Princess Aura's like, "Look, what is leaking from their eyes? It's what they call tears. It's a sign of their weakness." And then into the execution of Flash, which in the film is short, but in the album it's longer. Thank goodness for the album. That was written by John Deacon. Him playing his Fender Telecaster, doing a brilliant job on it, I might add. A little short instrumental, but I dig it. Then you have the kiss, after a little orchestral interlude that segues into it, and then it's one of Freddie Mercury's finest vocal moments, with him singing in highs and highs and lows of lows with the synthesizer. I mean, if it was just an album of like this, people would be like, "God, Freddie's an amazing singer." A taster of what he would take his vocal pyrotechnics to in concerts in later years. And then the last part with the theme done with an orchestra by Howard Blake. Amazing. And then it ends with the A minor chord. And then Freddie's ooh, ooh. And that's how side 1 ends. Then you flip the vinyl to side 2, and it begins with Arborea, Planet of the Tree Men, which is John Deacon on synthesizer playing doo doo doo. And then there was another part that was recorded but not used, which was the duping of Ming, which is where he tries to find Dale, the seducer, but winds up seducing another mistress instead. Which they should have included it, because it was like a different variation of the Ring theme, but with some different chords. Then it builds and builds and builds and builds, and then it ends with Max von Sydow going, "You!" Dun 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 dun. Pure difference. Then Escape from the Swamp, written by drummer Roger Taylor, which features him on timpani, drums, synthesizers. Brilliant. Luckily, and sadly, the band didn't do any themes for the battle between Baron and Flash. They should have written something for that. But Howard Blake did that. But yeah, if you saw the movie, Flash Gordon saves Baron. Baron becomes an ally, and those two become the resistance to overthrow Ming the Merciless. And then back to the album, we have next, as I read this darn thing, I'm trying to remember the title of it. My brain, the Brainiac had a whole brain fart, because I'm pacing like a tiger in his cage. After In the Deaths, it's Flash to the Rescue. That's next, which is just Flash on his rocket ship with Fulton and his Hawkmen about to approach the rocket ship to Pearl Harbor the rocket ship. And then right into Fulton's theme, written by Freddie Mercury, Squadron 14, dive! For years I thought he was saying die, but he was saying dive. Oh my goodness. Dive! And you see them dive and going after. Oh man. And then we get into my favorite instrumental, the battle theme, written by Brian May. It's just Brian, Roger, and John. Just jamming as a three-piece. Brian on the guitar, Roger on the drums, John on the bass, and Brian also on synthesizers. Bureau's hit. I'm going after him. Impetuous boy. Oh well, who wants to live forever? Dive! Oh man. Down, ba-da. Man, oh man. I mean, I've been listening to this soundtrack album for over 30 some odd years now, so it's like kind of ensconced in your brain. Great riff, great piece. And the band thought of it highly enough to include as the last track on the Deep Cuts compilation, 1977 to 82. Killer instrumental, not much more to add. Then we have Brian's adaptation of the Wedding March, which is just done on the electric guitar. Think Jimi Hendrix Star Spangled Banner. Brian May Wedding March on guitar and synth. Amazing. Excuse me. And then we have Marriage of Dale and Flash approaching, which is building up in intensity. More instrumental passages. Some more dialogue from the film. And then Crash Dive on Mingo City, which is when Brian's guitar takes over from the bass thump with some crashes and timps and just the band just rocking triumphantly to execute Ming. And on the album, it ends with Hail Flash Gordon, Savior of the Universe. In the movie, it was Long live Flash. You saved your Earth. Have a nice day. Yeah. And then into Flash's theme reprise. We owe everything to Flash. Hail Flash. We make Fulton General of the Armies. From this day forward, may every breed of Mungo live together in peace. And then, of course, it's a reprise of Flash's theme, the victory celebrations. And then we end proceedings with The Hero, which begins with the reprise of the battle theme, and then it kicks in with in the film version it kicks in with Freddie going yeah, 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 and then on the version on the album just kicks in with the band just jamming and Freddie screaming his ass off. So you feel like you ain't nobody, always needing to be somebody. Put your feet on the ground, put your hand on your heart, lift your head to the stars, and your world's for your taking. So you feel like it's in the story, one and all pretty satisfactory. But let me tell you, my friends, this might seem like the end, but the continuation is yours for the making. Yes, you're a hero. Ooh yeah. Oh my goodness. This song here, and then has an orchestral interlude afterwards, and then a reprise of the Just a Man section with Brian May soloing his ass off. Then the film version and the album versions have slightly different endings. Flash, Savior of the Universe, dun dun dun. On the album, that's not there, but it's in the film. And Freddie singing, he's for every one of us, stand for every one of us. He's saved with the mighty, he's saved with the mighty, he's saved with the mighty. He's man, every woman, every child, he's mighty. Flash, da da da. Oh man, ending with the power chord and the explosion. What a way to end the album. And Queen did play this live on many shows of the 1981-82 tours. They actually played this in Japan, in England, starting in December 1980. And it's on Queen Rock Montreal, this and Flash, which they did as a medley. So they played all of Flash and then played all of The Hero as one piece. As one 4-minute piece, which just kicked everyone right square in the ass. And then this song would wind up being the first song that Queen would play on the Hot Space Tour for many shows except for North America, as the band would play an instrumental version of Flash. Then go into The Hero. Live version can be found on Queen on Fire Live at the Bowl. And the live version of Flash and The Hero can be found on Queen Rock Montreal, the CD and vinyl version, that is. And man, oh man, the Flash Gordon soundtrack, one of my favorite film scores of all time, and not much more to talk about. Produced by Brian May and Mac, recorded at Anvil Studios and at Vision Studios, in Utopia Studios, with executive production by the members of Queen, but guitars Brian May and Mac were the producers, and Mac was the engineer. And Alan Douglas engineered the orchestra. And the album did fairly well in the UK. And the album just missed the top 20 here in the States, peaking at number 23 in early 1981. And according to the band, the album did go gold in the States, but the RIAA hasn't certified it. But considering it as a film score album, what Queen did with the Flash Gordon soundtrack was that they actually did something that few had done before and few have ever done since, combining heavy metal and hard rock to create a hard rock heavy metal film score. And that's what it was. And they did this 6 years before AC/DC did Maximum Overdrive for Stephen King. And it was also 6 years before Fastway did the soundtrack to Trick or Treat. So Queen were ahead of the curve. The first hard rock band to do a film score. I know Journey did Dream After Dream, but that was only released in Japan. I'm talking about films that was released in the US and abroad. And yeah, those three movies were flops in the US, but the most successful of the three film scores were Who Made Who by AC/DC. And Flash Gordon by Queen is the second most successful. And Trick or Treat by Fastway still hasn't been certified for anything. But all three soundtracks are killer. But Flash Gordon was the original. The first hard rock heavy metal film score, according to Roger Taylor. And that was reissued in 2011 as part of the Queen 40th box set. So I'm trying to remember what's on that CD. If I can find it. Oh, it's right here. My head's in La La Land. And on disc 2 of the deluxe edition of Flash Gordon, you get the single mix of Flash Gordon, the single mix of Flash, The Hero, October 80 retake, the early version of The Kiss, Football Fight from February of 80 with no synths, and the Montreal version of Flash and the Hero. The game deluxe edition, you got the aforementioned live version of Save Me from Montreal, A Human Body, the flip side to play the game, early take of Sail Away Sweet Sister, which was take 1 with guide vocal, It's a Beautiful Day, original spontaneous idea 1980, and Dragon Attack with Now I'm Here reprise from June 82. Man, oh man. And 1980 was the year that Queen owned the United States. Sadly, their popularity would plummet after 1980-81, and I'll talk about 1981-82 in a future episode, but 1980 is where I draw the line right now. And the tour in support of the albums continued until November of 81, which is where Queen Rock Montreal was recorded. In Queen Rock Montreal, which was recorded at the Montreal Forum 10 years before Freddie Mercury would leave this earth, featured the band performing many of the songs from the game, and this is live killers on steroids if you ask me. And the band had issues with director Saul Swimmer, and they claimed that, and Swimmer said Queen were a cult band at that time. Biggest bunch of bullshit, because Queen were the most popular British export in both the US and Canada. And Brian May and Roger Taylor were like, Montreal Forum was always a great place for us to play. It's just the director was kind of hounding us on what to do. That's why we had a lot of anger in that performance. But one of their best performances, if you ask me. So in 2007, Queen finally got the rights to the We Will Rock You concert film back and remixed it and re-released it as Queen Rock Montreal on October 30th, 2007. And let's just say this is my favorite live Queen album, because it's live killers plus songs from the game and Flash Gordon. And the tracks go intro, Drone, written by Roger Taylor, fast version of We Will Rock You, Let Me Entertain You, Play the Game, Amazing, Somebody to Love, probably my favorite live version, Killer Queen, better than live killers, I'm in Love in My Car, better than live killers, Get Down, Make Love, better than live killers, Save Me, awesome, Now I'm Here, better than live killers, Dragon Attack, Amazing, Now I'm Here, Reprise, which wasn't on Live Killers, but you never know. Love of My Life, better on here than Live Killers. The second ever performance of Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie, or by Queen. It was a bonus track on the then new Greatest Hits album in the US and Canada. Then you have Keep Yourself Alive, a little improv called Sex Show, right before the band goes into Keep Yourself Alive. A little interesting little jam that the band would play to go into the track. Then a drum and timpani solo by Roger Taylor, guitar solo by Brian May, Flash, and The Hero, both done brilliantly. Crazy Little Thing Called Love, amazing live version. Jailhouse Rock, kicking ass. Best live version Queen did was on here. And they took Elvis and put it on almost thrash metal Speedballs. with John Deacon playing his bass with a plectrum, his bass guitar with a pick, because they were playing at a fast clip. And this was actually the third encore on the first night. It should have been placed after Sheer Heart Attack, but never mind. Bohemian Rhapsody, best live version here. Tie Your Mother Down, same deal, Another One Bites the Dust. Amazing, Sheer Heart Attack. Brilliant, We Will Rock You, better on here than Montreal. We Are the Champions, better on here than Montreal. And God Save the Queen. Man, oh man. I know it didn't chart, but who gives a damn? Best live album they ever did. And in the grand scheme of Queen, 1980-81 was the pinnacle of Queen's success in the U.S., and nothing could top it. So that is my look at the game, Flash Gordon, and the offshoot live recording, Queen Rock Montreal. So before I go, I'm going to give you my picks of the moment. I'm going to go with those aforementioned deluxe editions of the game and Flash Gordon. And if you can't find it separately, I urge you to go buy the 3 Queen 40 box sets. CDs 1 through 5 was the first 5 albums. Queen, Queen 2, Sheer Heart Attack, Night at the Opera, Day at the Races. Box set 2, which is the white one, was, if I'm not mistaken, the first one was black, the second was white, and the white one featured News of the World, Jazz, the game, Flash Gordon, and Hot Space. Then box set 3, the red, featured The Works, A Kind of Magic, The Miracle, Innuendo, and Made in Heaven. And also Queen Rock Montreal, the live CD. And I'm going to recommend that, and Queen Rock and Queen on Fire live at the Bowl if you can find it. The import's still available on importcds.com. I urge you to go grab it whilst you can. And before I go, here's some plugs for some YouTube channels, podcasts, and other things I'd like you to listen to. And also I'm going to throw in for a recommendation for another channel. One other channel I forgot to mention, which I'm actually a fan of, not counting Michael Borland and the bottom line. Here's some other YouTube channels and podcasts I want you fans to give your love to. And to quote General MacArthur, I shall return. Check out The Rockin' Tours with Guy Pratt and Gary Kemp, both from Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets. Also check out Eddie Trunk's podcast. How can anyone not like Eddie Trunk? It's humanly impossible. And of course, the Chris Jericho podcast, Y2J for the Win. And the following YouTube channels: Michael Borland's Classic Rock channels on YouTube, John Bowden's various Classic Rock YouTube channels. He's awesome. Freeform Rock podcast with my buddy Mark Alden Taylor. That's recommended as well. The Villain Cult podcast with Roy Dam, Eric Lawton, and Mike Lockhart. How can anyone not like those guys? Classic Rock Review, that's recommended. The Professor of Rock. Darren Locke, he's recommended. He's funny. He's deadpan British humor, but God bless him. Melinda Murphy's channel's recommended. Brandon Snyder, great YouTuber. Pete Pardo, Sea of Tranquility. The Man, the Myth, the Legend. And my new favorite, JCM Led Zeppelin Stories. Jose is the king of Led Zeppelin, and the man who's got more copies of In Through the Outdoor than any other human being I know in my life. He has about 50 some odd copies of it. And his YouTube channels and his deep dives into Zeppelin things, awesome, awesome, awesome. And if you're not a Zeppelin fan, check out his channel. You'll be very surprised, guaranteed. Then again, he's the same dude who got me into Santana as of late. JCM, I want to thank you for that, brother. And you're more than welcome to come on my show, and you and I definitely will have to do a collaboration one of these days. We'll have to figure out the time and the place. So before I go, here's some recommendations for other podcasts and so forth and so on. I want you fans to give your love to, and to quote General MacArthur, I shall return.
Hi, this is Mark Alden Taylor from the Freeform Rock Podcast, where we rock and roll all night and party every day. Come check us out on iTunes and Podbean. Thank you very much.
Hey everybody, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Chris.
And we're from the Decibel Geek Podcast. And if you love this... you'll love us.
That's right. Brand new episode every single Monday. You can find us on iTunes and at decibelgeek.com. And the best thing is, it's rock and roll and it's always free.
Mistress Carrie reporting for duty. That's right. After rocking the airwaves in Boston for 22 years on WAAF, welcome to the Mistress Carrie podcast. And if you love rock, this weekly podcast is for you. I'll introduce you to new bands that I think you are going to love and keep you in touch with the bands that are already your favorites. I'll take you backstage and expose you to the people behind the rock. Plus, we'll talk about everything else that we know and love, like motorcycles, tattoos, skydiving, hot rods, food, booze, and so much more. And let's not forget all of the branches of our military, our veterans, and first responders. Everything you know and loved about the Mistress Carrie show, but now I'm unfiltered and uncensored. Fuck yeah! And if you never heard me before, well, welcome to the party. Subscribe now so you don't miss Mistress Carrie podcast.
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
Brain damage with Pink Floyd.
This stuff can give you brain damage.
The Pink Floyd radio show.
Use only as directed.
There is no downside in the moon, really. Matter of fact, it's all
Your controls are set to the Random Precision Radio Network. This is Floody and Slip, an hour of Pink Floyd. I'm Craig Bailey. Find us online at floodyanslip.com. Write to us at pink at floodyanslip.com. Floody and Slip is a Random Precision production.
You're listening to Nights with Alice Cooper. I think my Speedo is starting to cut off the flow of oxygen to my head. And that's why I got so temperamental with anyone who has the impertinence to question his wisdom. And hello, I pops his inner courier.
Hi, and welcome to In the Studio. Redbeard here with the stories behind history's greatest rock and roll albums.
You're welcome. Guitar up. 1, 2, 3.
Follow In the Studio on Facebook, at Redbeard Rocks on Twitter, and online at inthestudio.net.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the classic rock brainiac's got to give his cranium a rest. Thank you all for tuning on this lengthy episode on Queen's the Game. Revised, re-recorded, etc., etc., etc. And completely redone with more footage, more stories, and all that good stuff. And coming soon, I will be doing episodes on Billy Joel, Judas Priest, possibly Whitesnake, Def Leppard I have got in the pipeline, AC/DC Back in Black. Well, I figured I'd do that for my mom because that was one of my mom's favorite albums. And yeah, I know I bemoaned about it a while back, but me bemoaning about it is kind of like disrespecting my mom. May she lay in peace. Plus some other old but new episodes, whatever I can do, I'll get them done. So for now, this is the classic rock brainiac Terrence Reardon here, aka TJR, saying thanks for listening. I love you all. You all rock. No Ted Nugent after 1978, and no Bad of Hell here either. Good night, my friends. God bless you. TJR's Classic Rock Corner podcast was written, produced, hosted, so on and so forth by yours truly, the classic rock brainiac, Terrence Reardon. The intro music and the outro music is by the one and only Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin from the Death Wish 2 soundtrack. Copyright 2025 TJR Rock Sponge Incorporated, all rights reserved. Once again, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Good night, my friends. God bless you.